Yo, what up, Nyakos? It's your buddy Philko here, reporting live from your mama's house. Doing my thing as I usually do. Making kind of a scientific video today about evolution. For people listening to this, the first thing I need you to know, and I'll explain it later in the video, but first thing I need you to know that evolution is a fact. It's not just a theory as a lot of people say. A theory is something that basically explains facts, but it's not a fact because it's a theory. It's a fact because of the overwhelming evidence of evolution. That we all share a common ancestor. I mean, it's overwhelming. It's so overwhelming that a lot of religious people are starting to, not started, already have included evolution into their doctrines and shit, but they say it's different. Maybe these type of horses later became these type of horses. But whatever. But you can look that up. But evolution is a fact. If you don't know that yet, I kind of feel sorry for you. Because seriously, it's a fact. Medicine proves it. It's so easy to prove. So maybe there's a lot of questions you guys have about evolution in general. Now, I'm not an evolutionary scientist or some shit, but I do understand the basics. A lot of people will say things like, there's no such thing evolution can't be real. For example, where is the missing link for this? If we're related to fish, where is there a half man, half fish creature? Or if fish became lizards, where there half lizard, half fish? Well, let me explain to you how stupid that sounds. Right now, I'm 29 years old. At one point, I was 1 year old. Show me when I was half 29, half 1 year old. Show me when I was half 29, half 1 year old. Alright, so let's say you get me when I'm 15. You get a picture of me when I'm 15. Then you say, oh, that's not half 29, half 1. That's not it. You should have one long arm, one short arm. No, that's how you sound. There's no such thing as half this, half that. Things gradually progress. If you want to find something that's, quote, half, you can find the fossils that are closest between the two time frames of the fossil you're talking about. So if you find a fossil that's like today, just made today, or it won't be today, but just example, fossil that was made today, whatever, with the fossil that was made 1,000 years ago, if you want to find the missing link or anything, whatever, you have to find something around 500 years ago. Just an example. That's how it works. And it's not going to be half this, half that. It doesn't work that way. You understand? But that's just an example, okay? Another thing people say about us, like evolution, evolution can't be real. We didn't come from apes and stuff. First of all, yeah, we didn't come from apes, because when you think of an ape, the first thing you think of is a modern ape. Those are not the ape-type creatures we came from. Those aren't the ones we came from. The ones you're thinking of are not the ones we came from. It's an ape-like creature, but it's not the shit you see in the zoo. It's not that. It's similar, but it's not that. Then people say things like, if we evolved from apes, why are there still apes and stuff? Well, Americans, the white ones, the ones who named it America, Americans can't, it's like saying, if Americans came from England, why are there still English people? Not everybody goes through the same things in life. Not everyone's environment is the same as the other people's environment. So at one point, basically, most of the people on Earth who spoke English spoke with the British accent, English accent, right? Then they spread out. Now you have different accents. That's how it works. Also with how we look, our body types, our skin colors, all that changes as well. Not just the accent. So I'm telling you this: if you were to separate Americans, British, and Australians, just separate them from the rest of the world for let's say 500,000 years. When we see each other in 500,000 years, our languages will be different. It won't just be a different accent. Different accent is the first step. It will have different languages. We will look different. We will have different beliefs, different religions. When you're in a different environment, especially when you're isolated, you change from everything else that's not around you. You're completely different, and you're built for something else. So there's a lot of lands out there that have animals that aren't very dangerous. And then you put them on another island with a bunch of dangerous animals, they're going to get killed. Then a lot of people will say, oh, that animal is not very evolved. No, that's not how evolution works. Those things is more evolved or less evolved. It's you are evolved to survive in your environment. And if you're surviving in your environment, you are so-called evolved, basically. Everything's evolved. Everything you see is an evolved creature of something else. Everything you see. Even the animals who barely changed throughout the hundreds of thousands of years, at least physically, like fucking alligators and stuff, they haven't changed much, but they have changed. Even though it may not be super obvious, could be some in size, could be in behavior, could be in microscopic shit that we can't really see, but everything changes some way, somehow. They all do. We all do. That's all part of evolution. So like a dog, let's see, you guys know where dogs came from. Dogs came from, they all descended from the, I think it was the gray wolf. How it happened, when we were hunters and gatherers, we traveled around and shit, hunting, killing shit. Sometimes wolves would come, we'd throw them a piece, whatever. Then we started farming and shit so we could sit in one spot. And then we started fucking up animals and eating them and shit. And some wolves would come close. And the ones that would threaten us, we'd kill them. The ones that didn't threaten us, we'd give them some food. So as time went on, most of the wolves who came close enough and not threatened us, we allowed them to get closer to us, as we kept killing the ones who attacked us. Now, as the ones who came closer to us and were nice to us, didn't bite us, we tried to do other things like maybe touch them. So some of those nice wolves we touched bit us back, so we had to either chase them away or kill them. But there were some who didn't bite back, so we pet them and we became close. So all those other wolves that were, they'd bite us if we touch them, or they snarl at us when they come near us, we kill them or chase them away because they were no good for us. They're having a negative effect on our lives. So now that we have these little bits of wolves, that we can touch, we can cuddle with, we can bring around our friends, whatever, as hundreds of years go by, they start also changing the way they look. They start looking different than those other wolves because they're isolated from the other wolves. So they start looking different. Then not only do they start looking different, we notice some of them were better at certain things than other ones. Some of those wolves at the time were good at smelling. Some of those wolves, probably still call them wolves at the time, were good at fighting off other wolves. And we end up trading, hey, this one's good at fighting wolves, this one's good at fighting wolves too. Let's keep these together. This one's good at smelling, this one's good at smelling, this one's really fast, so this one's really fast. And as you're doing that, that is human-controlled evolution, which brings us to today, and we have all these different types of dogs, which came from a great wolf. That is evolution. Well, that one's a controlled evolution, though, by man. But that is what evolution is. We sped up the process for our needs. If that's not proof of evolution for you, I don't know what the fuck is. That's how it works. Now I'm going to get to, are white people more evolved than black people? Now, why am I making this video? Well, I was just watching The Atheist Experience, and I love that show. The show's great. And on the show, they had this caller who asked, did white and black people come from the same ape? And everyone was kind of confused, and even I was kind of confused. I'm like, what kind of question is that? So he repeated, he said, did black and white people come from the same ape? Because if we did come from the same ape, why are white people more evolved than black people? Why, maybe he said, maybe the ape that white people came from was more evolved than the ape that black people came from. Now, I'm going to tell you this. I love evolution. I don't believe in evolution. I understand evolution. It's either you understand the basics or you don't. Evolution is not a faith. It's not a faith like I believe in God. I believe He cares about me. That's faith. Understanding science is not a faith. It's not a faith. Just like you identify something as blue, or you identify a balloon and you prove it's a balloon, all that's with evidence. To you, you know what blue is because you've seen blue many, many times. If it fits what you usually see as blue, you're going to call it blue. That's the process of science. Understanding something. Taking in the information, using the evidence to come out with a conclusion, and testing it. You know something's blue because you've seen something blue many, many times. Even though on rare occasions this can go wrong, like that dress. Remember the dress? It was like blue and black or white and gold. Sometimes you can see things not the way they are. That's the vast minority of the time. And science can even explain that with the process of science. So science isn't a faith. Don't compare it to religion. Religion is about faith, not about evidence. It's about faith. It's all about faith. Because if it was actually about evidence, I highly doubt that there'd be so many religions around and they all show they're right. Science doesn't work that way. Science compares with other people's theories, with your own theory, and science is self-critical. Scientists look for problems with what they think may be so from the evidence. They look for problems, they test it. Religion doesn't do that. They say it is what it is. It's the end of the conversation, not the beginning of a new one. Now back to the guy's question. He said about the ape thing. And then the guy was like, that's not how it works. It's not more evolved than less evolved. Evolution isn't necessarily a ladder, like to a finish line. It doesn't have a goal. It's basically just creatures changing over time to better survive in their environments. That's usually the works. The ones that are well evolved to adapt in their environment survive. The ones that don't typically don't make it and they don't live. They die out. They go extinct. That's basically how it is. So I want to get into this because I've heard many times, even from friends of mine when I was younger, and I never understood it. And even at one point, I even thought white women were more evolved than black women. This when I was a kid, though. I didn't know anything. But I'm going to explain it now that I'm an adult, and I can understand why that was kind of stupid for me to think that. But I was a kid, though. A lot of kids think stupid shit, and you can't be blamed for that. So, a lot of racist white people say they're more evolved than black people because they look more like people, less like apes, less like monkeys, and all these kind of things. That's what a lot of racist white people say. This is what they say. This is what they believe. And usually the white people who hold on to this sentiment that they're more evolved are, interestingly, the white people who don't really amount to anything. Like, they love to compare themselves to other white people, like inventors and stuff, typically. Like, oh, we invented this, we invented that, I'm like, nigga, you ain't do shit. It's like me taking credit for all the shit blacks have done in sports. I didn't do shit. I'm not gonna be like, yeah, I'm cool because of what LeBron's doing. No, I didn't do anything. I'm a terrible fucking sportsman. I know it. But I stay in my place because that's not me. Even if we are of the same race, it's still not me. You gotta understand that. That ain't you. But let's talk about a genius. Somebody who's pretty good. One of the godfathers of this whole evolutionary theory thing. Charles Darwin. Charles Darwin, don't compare him to Jesus. A lot of religious people look at Charles Darwin as a person that people who understand evolution look at as like his word is just solid. Everything he did was right. No, this nigga made mad mistakes. We have so much information now that he didn't have back then. He had a great basic understanding, but he was wrong in a lot of places. And to this day, scientists are still correcting him. We don't bow to this dude saying, oh, Darwin, you were so right. No, that's not how it is. Even though a lot of people like Darwin, they're still critical of his work because that's how science is. It's self-critical. That's how everything should be, self-critical. You should always try to find mistakes. You should always try to correct yourself. My father always taught me, don't just do your homework. Once you complete it, check it for mistakes. And usually you always find mistakes. But if you're part of something in which you don't look for mistakes or you don't look for holes in it, you're a part of something that's not real, and I promise you. Because if you don't correct yourself, you're just bullshitting yourself, right? So what he did was, he was pretty good with evolution with animals, but he was really bad when it came to humans. Because he felt that humans couldn't really be a part of that whole animal evolution thing. We were something separate, And one thing he believed was that the Aborigines, the black Australians basically, he believed they were the missing link between ape and man in Australia. That's what he believed. So what did he do? First, they dug up Aborigine graves and started passing the skulls around zoos. Started passing them around zoos and shit in the West. But then he realized, he could make some money, he could have more exhibits and shit. He needed more skulls. So what did he and his people do, the white guys? They formed a gang called the Skull Hunters. And they started killing black Aborigines and cutting them up, taking their skulls to put in zoos and sell around the world, whatever the fuck they're doing with them. And a lot of people said this was done in the name of science. That's what a lot of people would say. They'll say, oh, religious people do things in the name of God. Now look, atheists do things in the name of atheism and in the name of science. No. Let me explain to you why not. For example, in some books, you can specifically read something in some religious books, basically saying something like, if two men have sex or two men lie together, which basically means sex, we all know that. If two men lie together, the penalty is death. It's written just like that. That's how it's written. There's nowhere in any accepted scientific journal, anywhere accepted by a good amount of scientists, where it says anything like, kill other humans who you feel are not as evolved as you. No, it doesn't say that. He, as a lot of men were just pretty stupid with certain things, and just selfish. That's what he was. He was selfish. He was smart. He was intelligent. But that's the problem. He didn't check for his holes. He was using even a fake skull called the Piltdown Man. I believe it was a fake. It was fake. They didn't discover it was fake till later. But it was half man, half ape. It was fake. And they thought it was real back then. If they had the proper instruments to use science properly, or to use science in a better way, they would have known that skull was fake. Which it was. It was fake. So he started collecting all those other Aborigine skulls and all that shit. You know, he was like, these are half man, half blah, blah, whatever. But I don't know if I got to it. Let's go back to the more evolved part. There's no such thing as a person who is more evolved than another person. That makes no sense. So just like the idea I gave you with let's say there's two islands. One island you have a lot of animals, and they're not dangerous. They're nice animals. You know, they live together. I mean, of course you have some predators, but there's not that many. Maybe you have an island where it's strange. You know, you have a bunch of big predators who eat little tiny insects, and there's almost nothing really in the middle. You have these big things who eat tiny insects. So, you know, the tiny insects, there's so many of them that they're just not that dangerous because they can't really fight those big animals anyway. You know, so they're just normal. But then you have another island where there's many creatures near the same size. They're near the same size. They all eat similar things, eat similar plants, eat similar insects. A lot of them around the same size and shit. So their size isn't that much for them. It's not going to mean that much. So they develop venom. They develop sharp claws. They develop camouflage. They develop all these things in order to survive because they live in a real hostile environment. And everyone's in this hostile environment because many of these creatures are around the same size. Just an example. So let's say you take a creature that is of medium size from that dangerous island, put him on the side of the nice island. Put him over there. And let's say he comes face to face with one of those big ass animals who just used to eating insects. You know, they see each other. And the big animal doesn't know what to do. So, you know, fight or flight. You got two choices. He decides to fight. Venomous animals used to fight. He's like, all right, nigga, let's go. They're about to go. They're squaring off. Smaller animal bites him, runs off. Big animal dies. Instantly, he dies. A lot of people will consider that venomous animal more evolved than the other animal. But no, that is not the case. That's not how it works. That doesn't mean he's more evolved. He's evolved for something different than that other creature. Where that other creature lives, he doesn't need to have venom. He doesn't need to have anti-venom blood, whatever you want to call it, in order to survive. He doesn't need it because he doesn't have any competitors on his island. They're thriving on that island. They're doing absolutely fine. But when you bring that other creature who needs to be violent and who needs to hurt other creatures in order to survive, that doesn't make him more evolved. He's evolved in a different way. So when you bring that creature to this island, just because they're more dangerous, doesn't mean they're going to thrive and survive. Doesn't mean that at all. Sure, when it comes to fighting, they will beat every other creature on that planet, but maybe they can't handle the amount of rain that this island produces. They can't handle that much rain. And they're used to living underground, and when the rain comes, they can't live underground, so they die. Because they're not evolved for that environment like all those other creatures are. So of course, if you take one of those nice animals and bring him over to the other island, of course he's going to get it quick. He's going to die fast because all of them over there are used to fighting. They're all used to it. Doesn't mean he's less evolved. He just evolved for something different. So it's not like, I want you guys to understand, it's not like creatures evolve like things they want. It's not really how it is. It's not like they evolve for things they want. Like animals are fighting and animals like, man, we need bigger claws. And the next generation, they just get bigger claws because they need them. No, that's not really how it works. Like the best example I can give, and hopefully no one's offended by this. This is just an example. Let's say this is one way evolution can go. Like the theory of evolution isn't whether it happened or not, it's how it happened. You know, like did mutations play a great hand in evolution, or did small gradual changes make big evolution or make evolution happen faster. There's a lot of different theories on how it happened, but not if it happened. So here's an example of mutation driving evolution. Mutation being the biggest thing. Let's say you have a bunch of people, different skin colors, whatever, but all their hair and eyes are black. All their hair and eyes are black, right? Different skin colors, different heights, whatever, but their hair and eyes are black. Then one little girl's mutated. She has blue eyes. This girl is born with blue eyes. Now, most of these men are attracted to the blue eyes. They're very attracted to the blue eyes. So what's going to happen? A lot of men are going to sleep with these girls with blue eyes, which will produce more blue-eyed children. Whether girl or boy, whatever, will produce more blue-eyed children. Now, as this happens over time, you'll start to see the number of blue eyes catch up to the number of brown eyes because blue eyes are more in demand. Sexual driven. Evolution can also be driven by sexual desires, of course. So if you keep sleeping with these blue-eyed girls and you're making blue-eyed people, eventually the blue eyes are going to catch up to the brown eyes. That's how it works. And if no one's into the brown eyes, no one's into it at all, they're really not into it, over time, they can and probably will, those people with brown eyes will go extinct. That's how it works. If people don't like it anymore, those genes are just going to die out. People aren't mixing with it. That's how that works. That's one way. But I was giving an example of a mutation driving it. But it could also just be slow changes over time. So let's say you have a violent-ass island where food is plentiful and people fight, different creatures fight each other. Now, one species, they for some reason, as their generation goes, they just happen to be a little bigger every time. So over the course of 1,000 years, they're bigger and they dominate most of the other creatures on that planet or on that island. They're going to start thriving and fucking up those other creatures on that planet or on that island because that island's a violent island. They can fight, they can hold their own, they're going to start dominating. And that gives them an advantage. Over time, they just happen to be a little bigger than the others, so they fuck them up and they win. There will be a lot more of them than other creatures, and then as there are more of them than other creatures, there'll be some of them on the left island, some of them on the right island. As long as these right island and left island guys stay separate for a certain amount of time, they will eventually become a different species if they spend enough time away from each other. There's even an island where it's interesting. Darwin wrote about this. There's an island somewhere with lizards on it. And there's like 4 corners of this island. There's corner A, B, C, and D. So picture a diamond, a baseball diamond. A, B, C, D. So let's say first base is A, home plate is A, first is B, second is C, third is D. Every species that's next to another species can mate, but each species on the other side of the diamond cannot mate with each other because they're too different. That gives a great amount of evidence to the more you're isolated from something, the less you can mix with it and the more you're different. So A is very isolated from C, but not so isolated from Not so isolated. A is isolated from C, but not so isolated from B and D. That's why they can still mix. And D can mate with A and C. That's how it works. B is on the other side. They can't mate. And this is a fact that this island exists. So basically, I don't know. With this video, I just kind of, I know I have a lot of black people on my, a lot of black people subscribe to me. I know I'm not a scientist and shit, but I just want you guys to have the basic understanding of evolution, because evolution is a fact, my man. And if you happen to run across one of those white people who try to say things like, we're more evolved than you, blah, 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 we do this, we do that. Like, first of all, nigga, you ain't do anything. You ain't do shit. What the fuck do you do? And if that person did do something, it's because you did. I can show you thousands of white people who don't really do shit. I can show you thousands of them. Does that mean you're more evolved? I don't think so. We're all evolved for our environments in which we are native to. We're all evolved for that. When you're a mixed child, you usually get the best of both worlds. So do you know why white people get sunburn and black people don't on average? Because that's what our skin is evolved for. And I'm out, Nicholas. Later.